What's up, Men's Couch? This is Micah, and we're doing a special episode today. A lot of our members aren't here today. It's just me and Daniel as the main members today. Um, so I will today we're going to talk about social anxiety and the stress that comes with finals. So Daniel can come in.
So today we're talking about stress and how finals can affect the stress.
You can introduce yourself.
I'm Danny, by the way.
Yeah. You
This is Alex. I guess Alex 1. We have two Alexes on the show. Alex 1, Alex out.
can. Alex one.
Hey, this is Ollen. Just checking in.
This is Nathan. I'm the other Alex Vignovich.
I'll be Alex 1, and you can be Alex A. There we go.
Alex A.
Alex A. My last name started. There was an Alex A in my elementary school.
All right, then I'll be Alex 1, and you'll be Alex B. There we go.
Did you just call me Vignovich? That works.
Sounds good.
There you go.
All right. So today, we're going to talk about social anxiety and we can talk about our experience with social anxiety, or just how do we feel when we approach the subject or the topic. So I guess I can start with the question, who's experienced social anxiety? Oh, that's okay. That's 90% of the men here. Except
Yeah,
for,
I want to, but they can't hear the hands. They cannot hear us putting our hands up. I don't think.
yeah. They can
Everybody
hear
put their
that.
hand up.
So,
Yeah.
Wait, do you experience it, or you don't experience it?
Me? No,
Yeah.
I did not.
Okay, that's all right. So I guess I can ask. So I guess I'll ask, when did you start to understand and notice social anxiety? I guess we can start with. Wait, who wants to go first about their experience? Because I'm not going to pressure anyone to.
We can just go around.
Okay.
Basically.
I don't want to start. So you want to go first?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when I experienced social anxiety, basically I just start feeling this worriness inside you. It's kind of you have that fear that people are out to judge you, or people are gonna make fun of you for making expressions on your face, saying if you do feel scared, people will probably talk about you behind your back.
So a fear of judgment.
Yeah, I feel like people are just out there judging you.
Yeah, I relate to that. I always think there's people judging me just of my every move.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's usually just the inner critic.
Yeah, it feels like every single second.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay, so is there a area where you feel you're particularly being judged, a specific setting that triggers it worse than others, or is it kind of pretty much the same across the board?
That's a good question.
It's it's the same across the board. It's kind of the same level when someone's just being mean to you. They're just being mean to you. There's no comparison between.
So if I may, then social anxiety would be, rather than a direct hostility, it's kind of the fear of indirect.
Yeah.
Or what would be the best way to put it?
People I guess
Behind your back. Mostly.
I think it's people are either thinking bad things about you, or talking behind your back, or just secretly judging you without you knowing. So, yeah. Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, you didn't have any, right?
Yeah, I don't experience a whole lot of social anxiety. To be honest, I'm a pretty what's the word for it? Extroverted. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't experience a whole lot of social anxiety. I'm not gonna say I've never experienced it in my life, but yeah, I'd say I experience it in the same way that Danny described. It's less a fear of direct hostility, or people just being directly hostile to me.
Mm-hmm.
And more so a fear of, I guess, social rejection, something behind the scenes,
Okay.
an internal, somebody just internalizing, a negative judgment about me.
Yeah,
I think that's how it tends to manifest for most people.
that makes sense. Okay.
Okay, mine's a little different. And it's
All right, Nathan's next.
So social anxiety for me, I would say, is more so a fear of just like being rejected or feeling that I'm not accepted. And I would say for me, I've struggled with that most of my life, especially after elementary school, whenever I had a severe bullying situation.
Okay.
And it kind of reshaped me as a person, and I kind of have like pretty bad social anxiety.
Okay.
But in the ways that it's affected me, it can be pretty bad, absolutely. I mean, there's times where I've been hiding in a bathroom because I'd be afraid of people or just not feeling accepted. And I know it definitely was starting at college that was really hard for me because I had this weird feeling. It was totally irrational, but stemmed from my social anxiety that nobody liked me or I wasn't accepted. And it can be very difficult and hindering in life for sure.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your experience with it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Alex.
All right.
Wait,
Well-
War Alex.
Yeah, War Alex.
War Alex.
Yeah, I think I have kind of a unique perspective on this because for all of middle and high school, I went to a cyber school. So there was effectively zero social interaction there.
Okay.
So there wasn't anything there. But then when I started coming here, obviously it's a big change. It goes from completely online, not seeing anybody, to a brick and mortar school where you go back to seeing people face to face. And that was really the first time in my life that I had any type of like, whole, am I going to fit in here? What's going to happen?
Yeah, the first I guess feeling of that.
Yeah, just worried whether or not I was going to fit in or not, if I was going to, be fine socially. But,
Yeah.
I'm still not perfect in every social situation,
Yeah.
but I've gotten a lot better from even when I started coming here these past few months. But that was a big one, kind of feeling out, am I, going to be accepted into a friend group, which I did. I landed, I think, easily the best friend group that I could have had coming out of cyber school.
Was it a surprise to you that people I guess welcomed you?
Not really. I mean, I guess in a sense,
In a
it was.
sense, yeah.
It was because
Yeah.
I'm big into World War II history.
Yeah.
War
yes,
Alex. It's a big part of my personality. I'm always it's
Yeah.
a big thing. I'm a history major, so
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's my turn. So I think for me it started, of course, in the glory days of middle school, but I think it was always like an internal feeling of a self-conscious, just around people, what are they thinking about me? Are they gonna reject me, like you said, are they
Yeah.
secretly rejecting you? But I think a lot of social anxiety has to kind of do with you if you've never experienced actual acceptance until, well, I think most of us haven't experienced acceptance until we came to college. But if you haven't, if you were always rejected through school and through growing up, then you're just gonna be afraid of that. So that kind of creates that fear because you're just that's just normal to you. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So that's the way I see it. So I think for me, I don't know if I would say public speaking. I think it's just sometimes it could be sometimes normal social situations, but because my personality leans more towards introversion, I'm I'm a huge introvert. People are surprised at me when I say that, but I'm the first one out of the group to go to bed at 6 p.m. So it's because I like that time to after all that social interaction. But I think people even having this discussion, I realize that a lot of people have some aspect to it to some degree. And I was kind of when I asked what has helped everyone in their social anxiety experience, what has helped you. Yeah, so I'm watching this because it turned off last time. So
So socially, what has helped me?
All right, we're back. All right, so what was the question? Oh, what has helped you in your like social anxiety experience?
So pretty much what has helped me like overall, I feel like I kind of coming into college, like I kind of got that mindset of like talking to new people and at least trying to interact with others. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just got that in the mindset of saying like, hey, it's a new start, it's a new journey. Like why can't you make your new set of friends all over again? And I
Yeah.
did just that. And ever since I just like talking to other people, like you'd be shocked to say I was also an introvert as well.
Okay.
As like how outgoing I can be most of the times.
Interesting.
Sorry.
My bad.
I think one of the biggest things that can help with social anxiety is one of the big sources of social anxiety is usually just the knowledge that no matter what you do or how you conduct yourself, you don't have full control over how other people see you
Yeah.
or how other
Which
people
can be
talk
very
about you.
scary.
It is very scary.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, one of the best things you can do, in my opinion, in order to help with it is just kind of accept that.
Yeah.
Just accept, do the best you can, obviously. Don't be a jerk or a bad person.
Yeah.
But also just accept that at some point, your control over your self-image or the image other people have of you is finite.
Yeah, you can't control that.
You can't control everyone's opinion of you. Some
Yeah.
people are going to have a bad opinion of you no matter what. Some people are going to talk about you behind your back no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of how I've learned to deal with social anxiety in general, not just on the phone or whatever, is like to realize that honestly, I don't really care what a lot of people think half the time. Like how I act is how I'm going to be. I mean, I'm not going to be an a-hole or like getting at anybody. Welcome like that. Anyway,
Wait, what happened?
I'm not going to be a hole. Anyway, so I'm not going to
Oh.
kind of go out and like insult people behind their back. Or
Oh, I
whatever,
know what you did.
but,
Sorry.
Like,
I just realized what you did.
people can't really. People are going to have their opinions one way or the other. The best I can do is just be myself, and like the people who want to be your friend and are truly going to be good friends will be the people who will judge, and maybe they'll make fun of you. You make fun of them back. It's all part of being friends, but like
Oh, I don't
nobody
like
means it
making
in
fun
bad
of people.
faith.
Unless it's like we're trying to end Alex. But anyway.
What?
Oh yeah.
So for me, what I would say has helped social anxiety is I'd say mine is a little bit different, mainly because it stems from bullying, and I have more so a fear of rejection and kind of that other friends don't like me. So for me, what usually helps is just waiting it out and just like hanging out with those people. So I'll try to get closer to friends and things like that so I can know them more, and it's just a matter of building that comfort that I know that they're not going to reject me. And it's just a waiting game, and it's difficult at times, but I would say time is just what helps me.
Interesting. I get to hear everyone's different perspective.
I think for me, it was just being around people more often.
Yeah.
Once I started coming here, just being around people. I'm a lot better around people now than I was 4 months ago.
Okay.
So really for me, it's just being around people that I can stand and
yeah,
like.
I think
So
getting used to the right people, we kind of have to like find like the right people, because I think like with me, I've experienced like a lot of bullying in middle school, so I wasn't around like the right people, and I didn't like know like who the right people were. So I think like actually experiencing like actual acceptance from the people around you, like the like our group, like experiencing that acceptance can help like you kind of come out of your shell, because like if you're like in an environment where you're just like, say like I guess in middle school, where you don't feel comfortable coming out of your shell or like showing people like your true self, then you're just not going to do that. But like if you're here, like a lot of us like in college, we're kind of like we're showing up as ourselves, and but we're also with the right people. So I think like that's so important in overcoming social anxiety. Um, yeah, I do.
I was gonna say, yeah, but like most things, social interaction is one of those things that it gets easier the more that you do it.
Yeah,
And also, I think the reason it's a lot easier at college is because generally colleges have more people at them than your local high
Yeah.
school. So
and it's not the same. It's not like the same people that
Yeah.
like are in your neighborhood that like know you, so you don't have to worry about that.
it's also a lot less cliquey, I'd say.
Yeah,
There's a lot less of a rigid social hierarchy.
yeah, it's a lot less rigid too. So it's easier to like meet people. And I guess like my next thing is like how like what are the steps that like where is like everyone's perspective of like how you first kind of try to get outside of social anxiety or like outside of like social discomfort, like what's like that first step that everyone took, like whether it be like I guess for example like I guess for example like it would be it would be like I'm gonna go to this like event. That's an example, but like what's your like experience?
So for me personally, I try not to think about like social anxiety or anything. Kind of like be myself and not what other people think. I go up to them and say like, "Hey, how are you?" And they reply back. Of course, you're gonna get rude comments, and of course you're not, but people will be nice to you if you give them a chance. Now,
Yeah.
event-wise, like I would try like attending these events because it's a great way to meet new people,
Mhm.
and don't always be like afraid to like interact with other people because they might not know what you're going through or you don't know exactly what they're going through. So you kind of give like a perspective on how other people can give you a chance on what you're doing.
Hmm. So I guess do you want me to like ask a question again?
So the question was, how do you overcome social anxiety? How do you go out?
Well,
and-
it's kind of like, so my question is like, what's like your first step out, like, or the hardest thing that you've had to do, whether it be like saying yes to like this event or whatever, or like actually sitting down at mine's. Well, I'm not gonna go into mine's yet, but like, or just like sitting down with like this like group of people that you don't know. Like, what's like kind of like your first like experience or first step?
I mean, whenever I came to college, my first step was just finding communities of people, already established communities,
Okay.
who had interests that I shared.
Okay.
Because that's one of the best ways to form a community is just to find people who share something you're interested in. For example, I joined the tabletop club, which tabletop games something I was very interested in high school. It was something that my friends were all interested in. It was kind of a central point of our friend group, and now it's the central point of a couple of my friend groups here at college too.
Okay.
So I think that's a good first step. Or in lieu of that, just going out to shared communal spaces on campus, like the basement we have here, for example. We have a large open area for people who just come to hang out.
Okay, and I'll get to mine in a second. It's good.
All right, so I'd say probably this isn't my personal first step, but like giving yourself exposure to more social situations and a greater variety of social situations. Don't necessarily let yourself just sit in your comfort zone. Kind of do something that'll push yourself out, whether it be join the outdoor adventure club and go rock climbing, or join drama and like put yourself up in front of an audience. Do something that pushes you and drives you to be better than what you were before.
Okay. Interesting.
Little squeaky.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, though, just getting out and doing things. And I know from experience that sometimes it can be really hard to get out there and go to an event or join a group because you think that everything's going to go wrong or people won't like you. But if you just force yourself to do it, you'll eventually learn that, hey, it wasn't that bad, or hey, people actually do care about me. And you'll eventually learn and train your brain to put that behind you, and you'll recognize when those thoughts are just kind of gibberish and not really truthful.
I want to get to social myths in a second, but you're last.
Pretty much for me, it's just, again, being around people.
Okay.
That's really it. It's just being around people. Like when I came here, I think it was you. Alex, and Xander.
I think I said,
Yeah.
was it like at the gazebo?
Yeah, at the gazebo. It was
I was
my
just like,
first
what is this
day
guy
here.
with, like, you have shades on.
Yeah, my sunglasses on. I was reading a book in the gazebo, and you guys were the first ones to say hi to me.
was like,
And
oh my
I just
gosh.
kept recognizing you guys, said hi, and eventually hung out with you guys on Bobby Mania, and the rest is
Okay.
history.
So it's like so continue like unplanned like interaction. You kind of just like you go to like a social space where like it's expected that the same people are there, which is why I hang out at the Rotunda. But anyway, so it's like where like you like expect that people are going to be there, and you kind of know that. So it's kind of like you kind of not wait for people, but like you make yourself more, you have like a better opportunity to meet people. I guess like for me, I think it's kind of getting out of my head, because I'm in my head a lot, and I like when I'm like in my head too much, I just like won't do anything. Like I won't, like I'll think about doing something, like I'll think about, oh, this would be a nice person to meet, but then I'm just like, oh no, but they probably already have their group of friends or whatever, so I won't make that like step. And I think sometimes it's like kind of overcoming like those myths. And I think a huge social myth is that everyone already has their group of friends, and I don't think that's like necessarily totally true. Do you have like other social myths?
Go first, Dan.
Yeah, I can go. I feel like I've found my group of people. Like, I know like meeting them for the first time can be a little bit challenging, but once you like get to know them really well, you kind of click in with them pretty easily. So I feel like overall, like I found my group of people and people I can rely on.
What's your social myth?
It's not so much one myth, I guess, but it's something that I see a couple of people do whenever they first come to college. It's really bad, and that's give up. Like I know there were a few people I met like the first couple weeks of college who tried their best to go out and socialize for like a month, and then after that they just completely gave up, and like you never saw them ever except at the dining hall. And I thought that was pretty sad. Like they just basically retired to their room for the entire year outside of their classes and outside of food, which is probably one of the single worst things you can do.
Can we just like stop right there? So do you think like by them just focusing on like school and like just the date like survival things, you think that's like kind of like
I wouldn't even say it's just focusing on school, because you don't like there's no schedule at college you can construct that doesn't allow you time to go out and socialize.
yeah
I don't think, I mean, everyone's academic
Schedules
capacity is differently,
yeah.
but I think more so is people who, I don't want to say let their social anxiety get the best of them, but whose social anxiety is so strong that they let it overcome their desire to go out and meet more people.
That's a different perspective. I didn't hear that. Yeah, like they kind of just, like you said, like just like give up, or they just like kind of start believing like, hey, it's not worth it because I feel so much like social anxiety in situations.
I guess that would be the myth then. Like the myth that there's some point in the year where you just can't socialize anymore, and that's never true. It's not true throughout high school. It's not true throughout college. There's no point in the year where like you no longer have the opportunity to go out and socialize. There's always events. Clubs are always accepting of new people. There are always students or other people in your community who are looking to make new friendships.
That's another thing. I'm always like assuming that people are not open to like new friendship or just like new like interactions. I'm always like, that's another social myth I have. It's like people like this person already has their group of people that they don't want to include me in their life. But
And
you look like you have something to say. Okay.
and there are some people like that. You know,
Yeah.
you can't be friends with everyone.
Yeah, you can't be friends with everyone, but I think I think the reason like we don't me specifically, that I like won't try is because you kind of like there's like, you know, the social anxiety feeling of this person. You just assume rejection without giving like the benefit of the doubt, without like there's no, you know, you don't have, they didn't say I'm going to reject you. You just like kind of like assume that already. And yeah.
I mean, you know what they say, you miss 100% of the shots you didn't take, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with that as well, because I would say at the start of college, and adding to what you said, Alex, I would say honestly I kind of ended up going down that path and like hiding and not really hanging out with people, because what you were saying, Micah, with just the irrational thoughts of, I might not fit in with them, even though they never said that. Like, I was having those thoughts and having a hard time finding people, and I even, for whatever reason, thought I wouldn't fit in with you guys originally, because I was like, oh, I haven't hung out with the group. I haven't.
I was like, I feel like
Yeah.
you're part of, like, this
Oh,
family.
absolutely.
It's like
I
family here.
fit in with you guys
We're all
so well
family.
now, but yeah, I was just at the start having thoughts like, oh, I didn't hang out with you guys all too much. You already have a group. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just the irrational thoughts. But here I am, and I honestly, best group of friends that I've had. So
You were adopted into the friend group very quickly.
yeah.
I feel like this is like my not second family, but like my like second family that I don't know. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And even kind of in relation with what he said, like another social myth that sometimes I'll see crop up in groups is like people who are in the group will think, oh no, this person's just going to join right in and hop right in. Sometimes you need to put in a little work to like help make them feel welcome, or to kind of like help them feel in the group. Like, not everybody's going to immediately click. Sometimes you need to get to know somebody a little bit before the dynamics start to kind of come in, and you could have your best friend or just like a really good friend.
That's an interesting perspective, because I feel like there's another expectation for like of us, like when we meet people, for us to like instantly click, but that doesn't like always like happen. And I think there needs to be like a lot of patience. Like, you know, I feel like Nathan, like I feel like you like, since like when I first met you, like you grew like so much. Not, I don't know if you can give feedback on that, but like I feel like you're just like I feel like you feel like so much like at home within like this, like our family or group of friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I started hanging out with you guys more, like even just last week, it felt so right, like so much better, and I was just able to fit in it. I would definitely agree. Yeah.
Did you go to sleep over there?
Almost.
Okay.
I really can't think of any really good social myths, but I think a big part of that is just a lack of experience on my part. You know, I've really only been in, you know, heavy social situations since, you know, the end of August. So I really don't have much to input here.
Okay. So do you think like a myth for you is that people wouldn't like accept you because of like your background, or because like you haven't, or maybe you didn't think that? I don't know.
Not necessarily my background. It was just more so, would I be socially up to the task of, you know, talking to people? Because, you know, you have 6 years of effectively social isolation in a cyber school. And it's like, then you come out, you have, you know, hundreds of people. And it's like, well, what do? Well, I just kept showing up, and everything worked out. So.
Yeah. I think another thing is like kind of the like expectations, and also comparison. Like we could like compare, like, I guess other people. Well, I do this. Like I compare like someone else's like group of friends, and then I look like at my social life. I feel like I should have like the same like level of social life that they have, but like you kind of forget that that you're like more introverted, and it just like works for you. But do you have like experience with like comparison and like comparing social lives? And I'm not gonna say, I'm gonna say this, like I'm gonna say this before you like say anything. Because I don't use a whole lot of, I haven't used TikTok since 2020. I don't use social media, but I think I guess we can like kind of get to that like in a later on. Like, how does that like affect our view of like social interaction? Like, do we think people have more friends than they seem. But go ahead.
I feel like my perspective between like in person and social media, I feel like social media you have like a lot more acquaintances than you do like in person. Just because you're like online, those are like your online friends. And by saying that, I mean they could be people that you don't even know and they add you, or they can be doing something like really bad, for example, because they don't know who you are. But like in person, I feel like you have like a lot more in person, like more friends than acquaintances, just because you go out there in the real world and you meet them.
So yeah, the question was, do you compare like your social life to other people's social lives? He's creaking.
Sorry. Yeah, microphone squeak a little when we move them. Whenever you said that reminded me of something I saw. There's actually been a little bit of sociological research on it. Something called the friendship paradox.
Ooh, I like this kind of. Sorry, my psych is psych major's coming after.
I'm a very very science oriented person, so sometimes we'll be having a conversation. I'll think of something and I'll pull it up. Right. It's something called the friendship paradox, which is a seemingly paradoxical phenomenon, which is that on average, a person's friends tend to be more popular than they are. Mm-hmm. And that's not an observation thing. On average, everyone's friends tend to be more popular than they are, which they go into an explanation here for why this is the case. In short, obviously, if somebody is very, very popular, they are going to have more friends.
Okay.
So all of those friends, the average popularity of their friends is increased.
Now, my question is that perceived popularity? Like, are they perceiving their friends as more popular?
No, it's quantifiable popularity.
Oh, okay.
I like these discussions.
If you think about it, it makes sense. Like, let's say we're all friends. Like, we're all friends with Micah. So we each have maybe 2 friends, one other person, and Micah. But Micah is friends with all of us and maybe 5 more people.
Micah knows everybody.
So most of our friends.
It's true.
I'm gonna get to that soon. I'm gonna get to that soon, but I'm not gonna talk about it exactly right now.
So then most of our friends maybe have an average of 2 to 3 people on average, except for Micah, who has 10 friends. So he brings the average way up. So it seems like there's all these people who are a lot more popular than us. In reality, there's just a handful of very popular people, and there's nothing against that. There's nothing wrong with being popular. But
I think there's such a like perception of, and this isn't like scientific based. I think there's like a perception of this. What stops us from making friends is that this person is already like popular, or we perceive them to be like of a higher standard than they actually are. So we don't be friends with them because we think that like, they are like they're here and I'm here and I'm down here and they wouldn't accept me. So that's another social anxiety thing. Yeah. Are you thinking?
Honestly, I don't really compare how many people I know to like other people's, because like I'm comfortable with like I know who I know. I don't know other people. I'm always willing to meet new people. So like I think being open to meeting new people, you kind of get to the point where it's like, do I need to know more people? It doesn't really matter. Like you know who you know, essentially.
Yeah. You're like the friendliest. You're like one of the friendliest people like I know.
Yeah, I would say that I definitely do compare myself to others in terms of like social status, I guess, because I know whenever I came here to college, like the people that I knew from high school, I was looking at them and I'm like, oh, they already have their friends, or oh, all this and that.
That's what I was sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. But that's what I was like trying to say. Is like, do you do you like see people like where they are at like in your age group or like forgot.
Yeah, and whenever I got here, and I was struggling a little bit at first with friends, mainly because I feel more so it was on me, just social anxiety, hiding and not seeing things, but I felt that I was struggling more, and seeing that did not help and kind of made situations worse for me.
Yeah, like if you like perceive that like you're doing worse than like you actually are, then you're just like gonna just like not try because you don't think that you have like the social I guess we'll call it charisma. You don't
Yeah.
have, huh?
He doesn't have the riz.
You don't have the riz. So you just like feel like you don't have the riz to the social riz. You feel like other people have the social riz, and you're like, what you feel like you're missing out on something, which is another thing, FOMO. But you feel like you're missing out on something. So
Yeah, I think so. When it comes to social media, I think, well, I never really had any issue with it. Like comparing myself to others, I was always very content with just being me.
yeah,
So I was completely fine. Like back in cyber school, just sitting in for 5 hours reading about Pacific theater logistics or something like that.
yeah.
But I think an issue that a lot of people are going to start running into, or well, already do, but especially with younger generations, is that they're constantly on social media to where they see these kind of like idealistic friend groups that are perfect, and they kind of fall into that trap of like, oh, it has to be this way. If it's any other way, then it's not right.
Yeah, like you kind of there's only like one way to do socializing, and if it's like out of that, if you're, because everyone is just like a different like human, but like if the way that I socialize is like different than like what I see in the media or whatever, then I'm just gonna like feel weird about myself. That's gonna create more social anxiety.
I will say that ever since I got social media, kind of since getting into college, and this could be correlation or it could be causation, I'm not really sure, but like I have noticed my anxiety's worse, and like I've seen like quantifiable changes in like how many days a month I've had anxiety, or like how bad that anxiety is. Like that could be just reaching the age range where anxiety starts to get worse, particularly in men's, just to bring it back to men's couch. But
Men's
like,
couch.
but honestly, I think definitely social media to some degrees through a combination like FOMO or even just like seeing certain things has kind of definitely made my anxiety a notch or two worse at the very
Okay,
least.
that makes sense.
I think we could probably do an entire, or you could do an entire episode of the podcast just on all the negative ramifications that social media has on mental health and anxiety.
You can do
At this
that.
point, it's a very well documented thing, but
If you want to like kind of like tangent into that, I don't mind, because it's like goes into the realm of socializing and stuff.
just to build off of what we said, I think social media really takes the friendship paradox thing, kind of pushes into overdrive,
Okay.
because now it's not just you see someone in real life who's really popular and they bring up your average. Now you see someone online who has like, or you see maybe a couple dozen people online who have millions and millions and thousands of followers.
Yeah, I never got
and
that. Social media was just never my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use it sometimes, but not a lot.
Yeah. Do you have more to say?
That's it. I mean,
Okay.
all on this issue, I think a lot can be said
Okay.
about social media and social anxiety, but that's
Yeah.
just one of the many ways it can affect.
Yeah, I think it all like it comes down to like I think for me social anxiety is like perceiving others in such like an idealistic way that you feel like they're just like so much at a better place than you, so that's why that creates that internal like I guess self-consciousness about yourself. Like what is it you're trying to find, like the wrong thing about you, like what is it about me that's like so wrong that I feel like people won't accept me. You kind of try to find that, and the more you look for it, the more you will find whatever it is, So, yeah.
Also, another reason why I think social media increases social anxiety a lot is because what we talked about at the very beginning about how it's a fear over other people developing a negative image of you.
Yeah.
When on social media, that's not just like a paranoia thing, or it's not just something that like you think is happening. Like that is something that actually happens on social media. People on social media are obviously very critical. There's a lot of I don't know the best way for it. A best way to put it, not like purity testing, but like a lot of
can affect your image, the image.
And
of you,
it doesn't happen to everyone, but you see people online all the time being ripped into or torn into for personal flaws. And oftentimes it is justified, but still, when you live in a world where like the biggest social space you interact with is constantly full with people being, analyzed and having their image attacked,
amplifies it.
Yeah, it can definitely amplify the anxiety, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely that just adds fuel to the fire that we don't want. But I think I think for me, what's helped me like deal with well, okay, how about okay, we're gonna I don't know why I was like this is coming out, but how do you think? What about like men? Since we're all like men here, I was gonna invite a couple of women on here, but they couldn't make it. Since we're all like men here, how do you think? Do you think social anxiety affects men differently, or how do you think it that? Do you think it or does it? Like, what's your like perspective or opinion?
I feel like for men, like, social anxiety can affect you more than what women experience, because I think men are going through it like a lot worse, and men tend to like get anxious very easily. And I'm saying this from a perspective because women are like more confident than men. Just saying, like, I don't know how to say it, but
Okay.
I feel like men actually don't know how to control their anxiety or man up and express their feelings, while women do.
Okay, and we had we had that discussion like on the last podcast about like the difference between men and women.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would agree with what you said, Danny. I'd say anxiety for men can definitely be worse because I feel that there's an expectation for men that they're supposed to be the strong ones, and I feel like a lot of sometimes we try to hide it when we can't, when we shouldn't, and it'll bottle up inside and get much worse, and there's that thought like, oh, I'm supposed to be strong, I can't cry, I can't do this, and it just bottles up and builds and builds, and it creates almost to what you said, like having a hard time controlling your emotions and your anxiety, and you're not truly learning how to help with that.
Yeah.
Another thing is that like you kind of like I guess like the pressure is that men should just like do it that men should just already like instinctively know how to handle like social settings. Like if you like reveal like, oh, I'm not like the best socially, then it's kind of you look down upon like, oh, you're a guy, kind of. Okay, who's next? You want to be next?
I was gonna say I think there's a lot of problems with male socialization in our society. I think one of the biggest ones is kind of the image of masculinity that we have is kind of one that discourages socialization.
Okay.
There's kind of the archetype of like the loner male.
Okay.
It's not always. Oftentimes it's portrayed positively. Oftentimes it's portrayed negatively. But overall, the image of a man, the cultural image of a man in our media, is overwhelmingly one that doesn't socialize as often as real men probably should.
Okay.
And I also think that goes in hand with that. There's a lot of very negative stereotypes surrounding men who aren't good at socialization that kind of discourages them from expressing their struggles with it, you know?
Okay.
Like, obviously, if you're an actual one of those loner types throughout high school, people, assume, hey, that guy's probably
Crazy.
or
I'm glad
prone
that
to
you,
violence to some degree.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I feel like how like some people like on the outlines are like perceived like so negatively, like people that are just like I don't know if I would describe me as like a high schooler. 'Cause I wasn't that, but like probably like unconsciously kind of have that bias towards like people that are like the like you mentioned like are like kind of like don't socialize as much, and you kind of have like what's wrong with them.
It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point,
Yeah.
because if you see somebody in the who's like initially kind of struggling to socialize,
Yeah.
and you kind of stereotype them, write them off as like a shooter to be,
Yeah.
and then nobody goes out to socialize with them, nobody reaches out to them. Well, not to say it, that those people are justified or good in what they do, but
Yeah.
it's not surprising that it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy over time.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Apparently, Micah wants to say crazy. I was crazy. He wants to.
No, I
throw me
said
in a
say
room.
it. I said say it. I didn't say crazy.
I thought you were telling me to say the rubber room.
No, I said say it. Like say it.
Say what I'm going to say?
No,
Okay.
wait. What were we gonna say?
Spit it out, Ollen. Come on.
Anyway, what I was going to say, kind of in line with stereotypes for men, men are also assigned certain roles in certain social situations. So, like, say, for example, a relationship with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So the man is generally socially expected in most cases to take the initiative and like approach the woman, make a lot of like the initial overtures and like even like decide where the date's going to be, when the date's going to be. And like the females don't necessarily have that perspective, like that relationship anxiety. They have their own stuff, but I'm not discounting that.
Yeah.
But there's a bigger impetus on the male to be the one who's doing in charge and like making a lot of plans and stuff, and that places a extra strain. Like I've had several female friends who have had to go out and like try and plan the date and ask a guy out, and they're like, I didn't realize this was this stressful. I'm like, I didn't realize how much you guys actually put into thought into it, and like how
That's so
much
funny.
anxiety that causes. And I think that's something that a lot of people could use a better perspective on both sides of that coin.
Okay. What was the question? What did we talk about? What did we say? What was the question? We're talking about the male socialization process and social anxiety. Okay, yeah.
What? Guess what it said? I was,
Okay.
Yeah,
I was,
I got something.
Okay.
To kind of not really anything related, but to kind of just throw something else out there is that one thing that can like one of the strongest bonds that can ever be formed between humans are two guys that are like they've been through some crap together, and like like a male bond like that. That's one of the
Can you,
strongest
like-
bonds out there. I'm
can
not
you-
gay, Micah. Don't.
No, I didn't. No, okay. Let's. Okay.
stronger than
Let's.
the men on a
Let's.
camping trip.
Okay. No. I'm glad you said that.
So much to demonstrate cultural.
I'm glad you said that because
There's
there's
another thing that I was going to add on
there's
too.
so much of like and I've looked at like photos from like the like because I'm a history nerd, so I've looked at like men's photos and like how they like communicate to each other. It was a lot more like expressive and like intimate, but it wasn't called gay because they didn't have like a perception of like they didn't like wrap sexuality and like a regular friendship. It was just a friendship. It wasn't like, oh, you're gay, like how it is like kind of like now.
Yeah.
But like I feel like you have like more to like elaborate on that.
Yeah.
Like more
Yeah,
like
I
stuff
got-
to say.
Yeah, I got.
I'm
So
glad we had the history guy.
yeah, so that's another big thing that you see in history. Like obviously, my primary interest is World War II, but the guys who fought together in World War II, they stayed close decades after the war was over, even
Yeah.
enemies. There's the story of who was it, Charlie Brown and Franz Stiegler, I believe.
Charlie Brown.
Yeah, that's his actual name. It was a B-17 pilot that got spared by a German fighter pilot, and they were friends after the war. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing. And another thing that I want to touch on, it's a personal story, is I have a friend named Jaden. He's in the Marines.
Mhm.
I've been friends with him for the better part of a decade now.
Cool.
But even then, like he lives all the way in Gibsonia, but I still
I don't know. Oh, that's north.
kind of like north of
That's
Pittsburgh,
north,
yeah. But I drove out to visit him a couple times. 4th of July was a big one. I was the first one of his friends there. I was the last one to leave.
So you're saying that dedication and like commitment should be normalized.
Effectively, yeah.
That
Just,
wa-
like
the-
there's good friends. Like genuinely, you'd go to the end of the earth for a friend of yours.
And that would benefit male friendships. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I feel like we've been like on this like topic of like male friendships and like how like I'm so glad that you said that because I feel like there's just so much of like what's so like deemed as like weird or like they kind of like try to like maybe and I'm trying to be careful with the words I use in the podcast, like how they kind of like try to sexualize like men's friendships and like they won't just like see it as like normal, like this is normal, this level of commitment is normal because this is a bond that we have and this is how like we express it and it's our commitment and it's like kind of looked at as weird. But do you have something to say?
I think, and I think it's something that has kind of decreased recently.
Yeah.
As I guess the stigma around historically people were kind of like men. If you were like a guy who was very outgoing, You were kind of like labeled as a little gay,
Yeah,
but I think over time that stigma has kind of decreased. But
I think it
I
has.
also think with that stigma, a lot of men were never taught how to build friendships.
Yes.
So even though that stigma has kind of, I wouldn't say entirely disappeared, but it's definitely decreased a fair bit, I think we still lack, like a lot of men still lack the knowledge on how to do that.
Because it's just like, and I think that's where like the social anxiety comes. You just like you feel like you lack the sort of skills necessary to build the friendship. But not only that, but like there's so much like anxiety around, am I coming on too strong? Because there's just such as like a stigma of, not stigma, I don't know why I keep saying stigma, but we'll use that word. It's such a stigma of like commitment and like friendship, or like it's just too much commitment. It's just too much. Like I don't want this person to like, I don't want this person to like it's kind of like that. I don't know if I would say like internal. I don't know if I would say homophobia. I don't know like how to describe it, but it's like that feeling of just like I don't want this person to perceive me as coming on too strong or coming on this way. But I like Alex, the war Alex, the war Alex perspective on it, because he's like, well, this is normal and it should be normal, and it shouldn't be looked as something other than it is. It's just like a friendship, a true friendship.
Yeah, another thing I want to touch on in that is that even around here, people joke about it. They always say, "Oh, it's your Marine boyfriend," which I don't have a problem with because it's just a joke, and I I joke around with it too. But
but it comes from like that cultural that cultural perception of how friendship should be. I feel like you have something to say.
I would just agree with what Alex said about just friendships and the male bond. It can be like really strong, whether it's something gay or not, but it's just that friendship sometimes I think people understanding more, it creates a really strong bond, like he said. And another thing I do want to add is that this is probably going to be it for me tonight because I do have somewhere to be. I'm going to be playing some music, so I want to say it was great for you guys having me.
650.
And thank you for inviting me on this. It was great to be able to talk about that. And even just talking about this, I feel like even helped me a little bit. So I appreciate you guys for that. And yeah, I'll see you guys.
Congrats, Nathan. We're so proud of you. We're proud of you.
Thank you for coming, Nathan.
thanks for being here.
I'll come around to you, Micah.
We're proud. Wait a second. Do you want a hug? Yeah. Wait. I'm giving Nathan a hug right now. Oh my gosh. Anyway.
Whoa, pack it up, Skittle Squad.
Okay, so I guess we'll like.
Huh? Trying to be inclusive here.
I'm sorry, I meant that as a joke.
I think, and no, I'm not trying to like. This podcast isn't like we're not being homophobic. We're just trying to like we're just trying to like recognize like how that perception of male bonds has affected our view of friendship and relationship.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't intend it that way. It was a play on,
This is not this podcast.
a
This
play
is
on the subject that we were just speaking on.
we're going. We're
I
going.
I don't think what we're saying is homophobic at all. In fact, I don't want to say it's homophobic to assume that two men being close makes them gay, but it's definitely not good. I mean, it definitely has negative social ramifications if
I think
the only
that
bond that can exist between two men in a society is automatically assumed to be romantic or stereotyped as such. In fact, actually, I would say that is a little homophobic to stereotype it as such.
Yeah, because I feel like it's not. It's more of like a fear of male bonding. Really, it's like a fear of that because you just think that that's like the only thing that could ever exist. Whereas, like, I guess I would say like when the war Alex is talking about like World War II, where that I feel like that didn't exist. Like people just thought like, okay, a close male bond is just normal. It's not like
it was just seen as camaraderie.
Yeah.
And a similar stigma has also always existed between like men and women being friends. Not really a stigma, but
yeah,
like
that's
when a man
it's
and
like,
a woman are close friends, people usually people joke and jostle them about a potential romantic connection. But I
Yeah,
think
that's another thing
the
too.
difference is whenever two women or a group of women are friends, they don't experience
They don't
that
experience that
in the
at
way
all.
that two men being friends
They don't
do.
experience that. They don't experience that. But I think I kind of want to wrap up soon, but I think because all of a sudden we got to go to this jazz thing. So I think moving forward, I think like it takes a lot of patience to overcome social anxiety. At least for me, it's going to take a lot of risk because like as men, we don't want like a lot. I think is like risking and vulnerability can be very hard, but I think it's worth it because I met like a amazing group of people that I probably wouldn't have not met if I would just like would have listened to social anxiety. So
Thank you very much for having us on.
any final thoughts?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
No.
Any
I
final
think it was a
thoughts?
very good discussion. Thank you very much for having us, Micah.
All right, we will return
Pleasure to be here.
in a month with the regular podcast members. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.
A good night.